Hi everyone, welcome to Tidy TV, where I bring the classroom to you. I'm Hannah John, and today I want to share a tool that I use that helps me as I kind of manage my research pipeline. Stay tuned. So as a graduate student, you might be thinking about papers only in the narrow context of, term papers for your classes, and perhaps your master's or PhD dissertation. But of course, what I encourage all of my students to do is to take that work, or perhaps outside of the classroom, you'll take some time and that you'll prepare work to be published, hopefully, in a peer-reviewed journal. Now, even though it might be overwhelming to work on one paper, yes, even one might be kind of daunting. But what you'll find later on, especially as you're perhaps engaged in much more research, is that there's a need to kind of manage the different papers that you're working on so that you make sure that everything is kind of timely and organized. So this is just a kind of template that I developed when I was a graduate student, when I was a PhD student, and I use it to this day. It's been tweaked a little bit to kind of accommodate, time. The passage of time. But I did want to share it with you because I thought it might be helpful if you're trying to organize your research papers. If you take a look at this template, there are 4 major sections. The first section is always the title of the research paper, whether it's a paper or a book chapter, or perhaps even a paper to be presented at an international conference. And in this section, I also put kind of date of intended submission or when it was initially submitted. This helps me to keep track of time, chronology, so that I know which papers to focus on first. And actually, I do list all of the papers in chronological order based on when I actually intend to submit the paper. Also, if I'm co-authoring with anyone, I would also include the co-author's name in this section. And yes, if there's a preliminary title, and so perhaps it's not a final title, I still do write some kind of keywords and give it a preliminary title in that section. So the second column is the target journal, the journal that I'm actually submitting or planning to submit this paper to. And this helps give an idea about kind of the mix of journals that I'm submitting to. And perhaps if it's maybe an edited volume, I would also include that here in this section. Next to the target journal, I would also include the type of publication that this is, especially in terms of indexes. So for example, if it's an SSCI or a Social Science Citation Index journal, or if it's a Scopus ranked journal or so forth. And again, this just helps me to make sure that I have an ideal mix of papers. Oftentimes, some of the higher ranked journals takes longer to publish, from beginning to end. So I do like to make sure that, every year something's getting published. It's kind of heartbreaking when some years you have, many publications, and then the next year it's kind of like a drought. NG. Not good. So I do like to make sure that I have a good mix to guarantee that the pipeline is, again, going smoothly. But again, as you advance in your graduate career, and hopefully later, if you're interested in a career in academia, then the types of journals that you would be submitting your papers to would be quite rigorous and ambitious. Now the last column is actually subcategorized into 4 different parts, and this is just to let me know what stage of the publication process this particular paper is in. And so you have everything from accepted on the left, and yes, it's very exciting when you have a slew of accepted papers. It might be accepted but not published yet, and so this is something that you also might want to keep in mind, all the way up to the end on the right hand side when you have something like working papers. So it's not even submitted to the journal, but you are currently working on the paper, and even working on the paper has many different stages, I suppose, whether it's just kind of conceptualizing the paper to having a pretty substantive draft and you're almost ready to submit the paper. So between the spectrum of working paper all the way to accepted paper, you would have a working paper and then you would have submitted paper. So again, I do keep track of when I actually submit this paper. And then next to the submitted, your paper could be rejected outright. Tear, tear. The faster your paper is rejected, actually the better it is psychologically. And also it gives you time to rework the paper so you can submit it quickly to another journal. So next to this under review column would be R&R. And so R&R can be a little bit tricky just in terms of kind of nomenclature. Oftentimes it's used to define roles and responsibilities, but in the publication sense, we're looking at, revise and resubmit. And so it could be that the initial feedback was they didn't reject your paper outright, they didn't accept your paper outright, but they asked for revisions based on reviewer comments. And so I often put, a block or a check under R&R. If they have asked for revisions and I'm currently working on the revisions, and perhaps I've already resubmitted those revisions to the journal. Now what I do with this particular template is I kind of create these in 1 year increments, and the reason it's a 1 year increment is because we are evaluated in 1 year increments, and so I need to make sure that there are papers that are being worked on, submitted, under review, and hopefully accepted within that period of time, literally just to make sure the pipeline is full, but that it's also quite smooth and we can expect something, or I can expect something to come out during that time. So as you're writing your papers, please let me know if there's anything that I can do to help in terms of your productivity, whether it's actually sitting down and writing the paper, whether it's collaborating with other co-authors, or what to do when it comes to revising the paper, as well as sending in those revisions to the journals. Or it could just be moral support, and I'd be happy to give you moral support on my channel. So until next time here on Tidy TV, bye! I'm actually really excited. This is a new sweater and it's it's a lamb.